Welcome to the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. Today, we welcome Michael Forman, a renowned expert in networking and communication. Author of the book Networking Unleashed, Michael transforms networking into an engaging and financially rewarding experience. In this episode, Michael shares his insights on enhancing corporate profitability through effective networking and communication. A distinguished veteran of Desert Storm, Michael's commitment to service and his devotion to his family shine through in his work. Don't miss this captivating conversation with a leading authority in the field. Let's get inappropriate. Welcome, everyone. This is the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. I'm Paul Angelle. We are into season 3. This is episode 2. And today our guest is Mr. Michael Forman. Michael, if you could, to save me from having to do it, tell our audience where you are and how you got there.
Well, physically, I'm in Cumming, Georgia. Um, Professionally, I am uh, people are saying a networking expert. I hate to use the term expert because I don't feel anybody is an expert in a certain field, but for lack of a better term, I'm going to use it. And I've been networking for 30 years. Sales, marketing, everything else. From when I was in the Air Force at a 20 something year old, I'm a veteran of Desert Storm. I learned how to speak with people who were older than I was, but I had a higher rank. Okay, so that took a little bit of getting used to. Then I got out. I was in the electronics world. I was in a mortgage world, a law world. I was a self proprietor. I owned a pizzeria. I owned a restaurant. So I had the ability to network with all sorts of people that you normal person wouldn't have to network with. And that's what started my whole journey to becoming this networking person that I am.
What do you think inspired you the most to focus on this particular field?
Well, it's amazing because the pandemic, ever since the pandemic, people lost their minds. They forgot how to talk, they forgot how to communicate, they forgot how to negotiate. Everything they feel is by Zoom, and you lose that personal touch. And that's absolutely, from the waist up, you look all dressed. From
Right.
the waist down, you got a pair
Right.
of
That's
shorts
the
on.
joke at my cleaners. They're like, Mr. Paul, do you no longer wear pants? And I was, no, I wear
Uh,
pants. I'm not bottomless. I don't wear the kind of pants that I'm going to pay you $4 to wash and press. Put it that way.
Right, right, exactly.
Let's talk about early struggles. Networking isn't always smooth sailing. It's a process. What were some challenges you faced early on, and how did you overcome them?
Well, it's funny. I've been networking for such a long time that it's really ingrained in my system. But the troubles that I see that somebody else would have, as well as I did. But you know what the number one problem with networking is? This. It's the cell phone. It's the number one thing that distracts everybody. And the trick is to not turn it off, but put it away. Put it away where you can't see it, they can't see it, and you be present. So the first thing you have to overcome is you have to put that cell phone down and you have to be present. Because the first couple of times you go networking, you're talking about everything, you're running at the mouth, and your cell phone is going off. It's a distraction for everybody, and you have to wipe all that away and really start from the beginning. You begin with a handshake, you begin with eye contact, and you really can't get that through Zoom.
Let's talk about defining moments. Can you recall maybe a pivotal networking experience that significantly shaped your approach or your mindset?
Yeah, when I was in the mortgage world, I created two separate networking groups, like a BNI or a LaTip, but it was mine. I had one in New York, one in New Jersey. There are about 30 businesses in each, and it was a weekly meeting for both of them. And I found myself educating them, teaching them how to network. And that I think really was my defining moment when I knew that I can teach this. And you know what? I have to teach this because everybody forgot how.
Speaking to profitable connections, you made networking both fun and profitable. But networking to me was always fun. It isn't always fun. And I had to learn that introverts actually are more productive networking because they're dreading it. They're prepared. They're goal focused. They're way different. I'm going for fun. I'm thinking this is a new audience to tell jokes to. But what strategies do you recommend for turning connections into tangible business outcomes?
Well, the what I suggest, I wrote a book on this, Networking Unleashed. And if you were to follow everything that I do in the book, everything I try to educate you on in the book, I will almost guarantee you that you'll increase your profits by next month. And how will I do that? Because you're going to get one more client, two more clients, three more clients, more than what you had this month. And that will immediately add to your bottom line. And all it is a strategy. All it is knowing how to network properly. And if you network properly and more effectively, that will in turn create more profit for you. Well, you're building relationships. You're not looking for clients. You're building relationships because then a true relationship will give you those referrals.
Right.
And your referrals are golden. Your mailing list, your database, your CRM, that's all gold.
Trust is a big word, and I agree with the author Simon Sinek about trust. It evolves.
If they know you, if they like you, and they trust you, they'll do business with you.
Trust is crucial,
Yeah.
in my opinion, in networking. How do you establish and maintain that authentic relationship with fellow professionals who aren't maybe related to you?
Well, talking about my peers or you're talking about prospective clients? Okay, because that's two separate worlds. If I'm talking, okay, well, if I'm talking to a client, a prospective client, I'm working on building up rapport. Now, go through the first part of a networking event. When you walk in the door and you see 300 people and you see tables all over the place with people talking, you pick a table and you walk up. You don't say anything, but you walk up and you listen. Before you start to talk, you listen and you listen for the conversation. Is this a conversation I want to get involved in? If not, you very politely bow out and you go to the next table. If it is a conversation you want to be part of, you listen up and you listen for that opportunity where you can show your expertise in your field. And then you start a dialogue. And then when you close in on one or two of those people, then you start to build the rapport. Now you introduce yourself. I still haven't told them what I do, okay, or why I'm there. You're letting them talk, and you let them talk because the more people talk, the more that barrier comes down. People love to talk about themselves. Okay? And then after you listen to them and you like the person who you're talking to and what they're trying to sell or do or anything like that, you say, you know what? I like that so much. How can I be that good of a referral to you? How can I refer you any type of business? And they're like, you haven't even told me what you did yet. You're here, you're trying to tell me that you want to refer me? Yes. Well, that's when they start talking about, they give you the card and they start telling you what's the great thing about it and everything else. And then if you did your job correctly, they'll ask you for your business card. Okay, so on the back of their card, you write down the date, you write down whatever event you're at, and something you talked about, something you built the rapport on. Now, I love talking about youth sports. And I was a baseball coach for 16 years. I was an umpire for 3 years. So I really got involved with the sports. And so I said, okay. So I talked about his son, John or Johnny, and he hurt his ankle running to first base, something like that. So on my follow up, my first email to him will have the date, the networking event, and a little bit that we talked about. And I'll go into follow up afterwards, but that's one of the first things you do. And there is your first exchange. You don't go there expecting to sell something. You're going to hand out all your business cards. Okay. If you hand out more than 10 or 15 business cards, it was too much. You have to treat your business cards like they're money.
Totally agree with it. I think it's much more impactful when you're telling someone what you do because they asked you after
Absolutely.
you've asked them. Why we had our sales reps when I was a sales manager and a trainer, we would always make sure everybody had a crystal clear, easy to say, well rehearsed elevator speech. Because
Well,
the
that's
most valuable thing is when someone asks you what you do, you should expect that and be prepared for that and be excited about that.
your elevator speech, your 30-second elevator speech should be 5 seconds. Okay. Now, why would I say 5 seconds? Because the whole idea behind an elevator speech is to get them to respond, to get them to ask you a question. So I help professionals network and communicate more effectively. 5 seconds. Boom. Can you tell me more about that? Yeah. And then I'll go into my second half of my elevator speech, but not until they ask me that question.
We call, what did we call that? We called that a magic statement. It was a magic
Yeah.
statement that left a little bit out, left a little intrigue. It was kind of a teaser,
First thing you want to do is have them ask you that question.
like a hook.
And once they absolutely, you hook them in.
Right.
Okay. And if you don't get that response, then work on your 5 seconds of an elevator speech because you're not doing it well.
Networking isn't all fun for everyone. Large scale gatherings can be overwhelming to some people. And I've seen this. And it's something sometimes I have to overcome in the whole invitation process. But what tips do you have for making the most of conferences, seminars, of industry events, especially for, say, an introvert?
Okay. So it's funny because I just answered this question yesterday. I've heard of a ghostwriter with a book. Okay. They do all the work. They do all the work, but they put the other person's name on it. Okay. Now, I always say go to these networking events alone. Don't go with anybody because once you go with somebody, you're going to feel like you should stay with that person. And then you're not going to hit everybody you're going to think of because they're going to hit the same people. So you don't want that competition. So you have to go alone. Now, that's for the extroverts. That's for the people who are used to networking. But what about the introverts? The introverts, my ghostwriter. Now, I was in the Air Force, so I'll call this person my wingman. All right. So let's say I'm an introvert and I want to really go to networking events. I want to build up being a salesperson. I want to do it all. I'm going to bring my wingman, who's an extrovert. Okay. You have to pay him or do something. I don't know. When you walk up to that table and you listen for that conversation, and you're waiting for that time to talk. Now, your wingman knows everything that you do and how well you do it. So when he finds a loophole in that conversation, say, oh, you know what? Mike does that incredibly well, and he does it with XYZ. Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And that immediately invitation to start talking. And then I can start talking. Most introverts just need that invite. Just something to start talking, and then you start talking and interacting with everybody. And you go to the next table, you do the same thing, the next table, and by the end of the night, they're feeling almost okay. I would say by the third networking event with a wingman, by the fourth one, you won't need them anymore.
We live in an amazing time. I know you and I talked before. We're those generations where things didn't quite change as fast as they change today. We're getting used to it, but the networking landscape has evolved. It's evolved this month. It's evolved a lot in
Yeah.
6 months. It evolves constantly. How do you stay current and adapt your strategies to new trends and technologies?
Well, you kind of combine what's happening now and old style. Okay. Now I'm talking about old style with my networking. Okay, because you have to go back to your basics about being courteous, uh, being respectful, all that stuff. But you have to go online, new age. You got to go online. You got to see what's out there, and you have to make networking events. Put them on your calendar. Okay, go into now. You can have an electronic calendar. You can have a desktop calendar. You can have anything you want. Okay, but put it on your calendar. Go at least twice a month. Okay, so you're going to go online, figure all this out. There's plenty of sites. There are meetup sites, there are networking sites, everything, and you can find what the trick is. Wait, you have to start. You have to start doing it. And the first time, it's very exciting. The first time, you're all excited. You got uh, 15 business cards, and you did all the right things and everything. And the second one went to, that's great. 15 more. What are you doing with all those business cards? What are you doing with all that information? How are you writing all those emails? How are you following up? Because if you don't follow up properly, don't even bother going.
All right. Well, let's talk about networking. As a business. I mean, you're an author, you're a speaker. In that vein, in that business, share maybe a memorable success story where networking directly led to significant business opportunity or growth for your networking.
I did a workshop, and this was a metal roofing company. Okay, something you would never think of, but he's a big deal in Ohio. Um, about 30 people came. I From soup to nuts, I told them how to network and how to follow up properly, what to look for, what to look out for, everything else. And what that did for them was I almost guaranteed them that they would increase their profits by the next month. So if they got one extra sale, it would pay for my fee plus. If they got two extra sales, that would just be, incredible. Well, they got about 11 extra sales the following month. Okay, so that right there made them all profitable from my talk. But two or three people in there, because they heard me, I'm very passionate when I speak. They heard me say, you know what? I have to have you in my company because everybody else needs to hear this. And so that's how it became profitable for me because I get sales from referrals.
How do you network and get referrals for a company that's about networking and get referrals? It's same as anything else.
It's nothing better than word of mouth. Okay, that's your best thing. Your second best is well, that kind of ties with it, um, a referral from that person who sat there in your audience, heard you, and said, "I got to have you." That's how it all starts.
And they're
And you
doing
would
much
think
better.
that everybody would refer you because you're in the process of referring them. So they see that you're willing to give before you get.
Right.
So you give the referrals. So they'll think of, as soon as they hear of something or somebody in your same space, say, oh, wait, I have this great speaker, Michael Forman, he talks about networking, communicating. You've got to talk to him. And that's how it all begins.
Okay. Well, we talk about all the changes and things, but what is your vision for the future of networking? How do you see it evolving in the coming years?
Well, in the, I would say that, you would think that you would more online uh, speaking engagements, workshops, things like that. Now, I do workshops now online. I have certain classes that I give about networking, communicating, and everything else. That is only going to get better and more streamlined. Nothing can replace that one on one contact. Nothing can replace me walking out onto a stage with three or 400 people and having that connection. Okay, so as advanced as we're getting, not so advanced because people still need that human contact. And what do you do when you meet somebody? You just fall apart? No, that's where you have to really hone your skills.
Well, that's interesting because what you're saying, and I don't know if I've thought of it this way, but what you're saying makes sense. The more dependent and distracted and online we are, the more impactful the old school techniques become because everyone's not doing them anymore. I know that I used to send handwritten letters and people would respond. I haven't got a handwritten letter in years. Thank you.
Well, that's part of the follow-up. Okay, when I say you're following up effectively, there's a whole way of following up, and that happens to be one of the ways. So let's take a scenario that you went back to your office or you went back home and you have 15 business cards with the date and the name of the event and the something about. So you write an email to the person. Say, look, I love meeting you on such and such date, such and such event. We talk about your son Johnny hurting his ankle on the way to first base. I hope to connect with you soon and just sign it. Now, I didn't put a date, I didn't put a time, I didn't put how we're going to meet. I just write that as a quick email. Now, I would instinctively take out a thank you card, handwritten thank you card, and write almost exactly the same thing, put your card in it, and mail it to them because everybody likes to receive something in the mail from somebody, not bills and everything else, but all of a sudden they receive it and it makes you stand out from everybody else. I once wrote a thank you note. I was in the mortgage industry and I wrote a thank you note to a realtor, and she was so impressed with it that she wrote me a thank you note for my thank you note. Okay. So it was really, and now that goes a long way.
Now,
So
did you write her a
now
thank you
by
note
the,
for the thank you note?
yeah, I was thinking about it, but I didn't. I didn't. But now your next email should say, hey, I haven't heard from you. Um, I was really glad to meet you. I just saw that I'm available next Tuesday or Wednesday for a cup of coffee. How about Tuesday? Is that all right with you? And start it very slow. That's the soft touch. Okay. I didn't say at the networking event, hey, how about Tuesday we meet and I'm gonna talk about business and we talk, it's like, no, 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 this softer way, and you'll get about 90%, a 90% return rate.
I hung on to old school techniques partially because of when I came about, right? I'm a Gen Xer, right? We know what it's like to be feral, but we also had the creature comforts that everybody's used to now. So we're kind of like hybrids. But I was resistant and I did the old school stuff because I was reluctant to change. I was on a call, God, a couple of weeks ago, and the guy was speaking about something completely different, but he said a sentence that I thought was so profound that I made him stop and repeat it because I wanted to write it down. He said, Well, everybody wants things to improve, but nobody wants things to change. And then he started his next sentence. I was like, wait, stop. That sounded important. I never heard that put that way, but I agree
Right.
with that because, whether you're managing people or processes or systems, it doesn't matter. Everybody wants improvement. They want things to get better, but as soon as you start making things better, you get the resistance because nobody wants things to change. Well, the old school stuff,
Absolutely correct.
I hung on to it too long, so long that it's kind of like my mom kept clothes. They came back in style. She kept them so long. The handwritten notes that nobody else was doing anymore, I was having way more success than them. And it was like, that's my secret. My laziness,
Yeah,
my
That
inability to conform.
that was my claim to fame, the handwritten thank you notes. And my follow-up sequence, because I followed up with them not too close together, but not far enough away where they forget about me. So I had a constant follow-up with them. And then after about 2 weeks, maybe 3 of certain types of follow-up, if they still didn't answer, then I was just, you know, throwing water into the wind. But usually I would say you have a 90% chance of them sending something back. No, I'm not interested. Yes, I am interested. How about that coffee? Da, 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 whatever. Um, about 90% of the time, if you do that thank you note.
What legacy do you hope to leave through your work in networking?
Very easy. I want them all to be good people, good person. It's This all starts with respect and courtesy. You give the same respect to the janitor as you do the CEO. And you do it for a number of reasons. Number one, he's a person. Okay. You don't know how he got there, why he got there, anything about him. So why not give him the respect of being a human being? Now, look, he can be the brother in law of the CEO and he can just, rat you out if you did something wrong. But more times than not, he's just a person, and you say hello, you be courteous and everything else. It's If people can be good people, then I've done my job. And you'll get more profits, you'll be more business savvy, you'll do everything will fall into place, but you have to start with being a human being, being present, being respectful, being courteous. It's all very simple.
That is beautiful. All right. Well, Michael, people listening, if they want to get in touch with you, if they want you to come speak to them or coach them or host a workshop or interact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Best way to do it is go to my website, michaelaforman.com. Okay. On there, you'll see that the many podcasts I was on. There's the link to my book, Networking Unleashed. But on there also is a contact form. And I'll answer you within 24 hours. But there is keynote speeches, breakout session, workshops, and coaching one on one. All of it's there. You get a certain something for free. But just go to my site, read it, and if you want to contact me, very easy, michaelaforman.com. I my email is michael@michaelaforman.com. So if you want, send me an email.
Thanks again. This was an awesome call. I mean, you're already, like I said earlier, you're speaking to the choir, preaching to the choir.
Yeah,
I am a firm, heavy duty believer in networking and systematizing networking and follow up and how it's always in a small business, especially, it is always the biggest opportunity to make the quickest and best impact on a business by far. You can
it is.
you can
You're absolutely right.
you can network for free. There are ways to do it without spending a dime, but
Absolutely.
just like anything else, take that first step. But it all comes down to growth. Thanks again for being with us. This has been great. I want to remind our listeners at Inappropriate Growth, if you're going to grow, chances are you're eventually going to have to do something inappropriate. Thanks so much.